We start with breaking news from the Gaza Strip, where Hamas has released 3 Israeli hostages captured in the October 7th terrorist attacks. American-Israeli citizen Keith Siegel was handed over to the Red Cross in Gaza City. The 2 other captives, French-Israeli dual national Ofer Kalderon and Israeli citizen Yarden Bibas, were released earlier in Khan Younis. The Israeli military has confirmed Kalderon and Bibas are already back in Israel. Israel is freeing dozens of Palestinian prisoners in exchange. For more, I'm joined now by our correspondent Tanya Kramer in Jerusalem. Tanya, tell us more about this latest hostage release.
Yeah, as you said, we've seen this starting in the early morning today, around 8:30 local time. The first handover by Hamas of 2 Israeli hostages in southern Gaza, in Khan Younis, and then sometime later the handover of a 3rd hostage, U.S.-Israeli hostage Keith Siegel, there in Gaza City in the port area, again by Hamas. We understand now they're all now in Israel. They're being, treated first in a medical checkup, but also then reunited with their families and flown to hospitals in Israel. Here now was a very matter-of-fact and quick handover compared to Thursday, where we had large crowds in southern Gaza, and where then Israel complained and stopped for some time the release of Palestinian detainees and complained to the mediators that this needs to be better. So today we have seen the handovers, and now we are seeing also in a very quick turnover now Palestinian detainees now were driven now to Ramallah. Some of them, at least, some others will be released into Gaza or deported to Gaza, and now where their family members and relatives are waiting for them.
Tanya, can you give us some more details about those 183 Palestinian prisoners who were being released?
Absolutely. So we've seen buses there in Ramallah now arriving, where families there waiting. Some of them have been serving longer sentences and life sentences, but also this time we understand there are over 100 people from Gaza that will be released. They were held without charge. They were detained after the October 7 attacks, and they were held there without charge. And human rights groups in Israel have said, and also in the Palestinian territories, they were held in very, very dire conditions. Mostly even their family members didn't know that they were detained. So this is part of the agreement that also those people will be freed during the deal. What we also be seeing, we are watching the Rafah crossing. This is the only exit point to Egypt for Palestinians. This crossing was seized in May last year by the Israeli military, and under the agreement this crossing should open at least one way, as we understand for now, for the exit of wounded and injured Palestinians. So this is another key point or important development now under this agreement when this crossing will be opening again.
In this delicate dynamic, Tanya, between Hamas and Israel, the question is always what happens next. So what is next on the schedule?
Well, we're seeing, as you rightly say, it's a very fragile and a very complex agreement. So we're expecting already next week, from Monday on, that's also set in the agreement, that on the 16th day, both sides will come back together with the mediators in indirect talks to talk about the second phase, which would entail the release of the remaining over 60 hostages in Gaza, but also then talk about a longer-term permanent ceasefire.
DW correspondent Tanya Kramer. Thank you, Tanya. We'll continue this with Middle East analyst Shani Rosanis, who is joining me now in the studio. Shani, tell me a little bit about who these hostages are. We know at the very least they are all men, They are all civilians.
Correct. Officially, there are no more women held, at least not any alive, held by Hamas. So the one to notice the most, Yarden Bibas, he's considered a humanitarian case, and in exchange for him, Israel will release Gazans, over 100 Gazans who were captured during Israeli operations in the Gaza Strip. And so this is sort of a humanitarian exchange, one for one. He is mostly known because he left his house in near Oz, in a community really close to the border, on the morning of October 7th, hoping to save his wife and children who were left behind. Only then we all learned, and he also later realized, that they were also kidnapped by Hamas, and the whereabouts of his wife and 2 children, one of them only 9 months old, at the time of the kidnapping, is still not known. The assumption was that Hamas announced that they were dead already in November 23, but the assumption was in Israeli, at least by Israeli forces, Israeli officials, we cannot trust Hamas with that information, because there have been cases, we've seen also people released in the recent weeks that were also proclaimed dead by Hamas. But the fact that their release is being delayed brings heavy concerns to Israelis. And this day, you see, I watch the Israeli media as they watch this, and you see a lot of heavy hearts, a very mixed emotions day. Happy to see him alive and survive, but knowing he's coming back to an empty house with, his wife and 2 children gone.
An emotional day, surely. You heard me talking about optics with Tanya there. One of the consistent things I have noticed, and certainly our viewers must have noticed during these handovers, is what appears to be an unmistakable show of force by Hamas. What do you make of that?
You well put, Michael, definitely a show of force. Hamas, none of what we're seeing in these scenes, none of it is, accidental. Everything is very well crafted. Who are the people, who are from the roping of the stage to the backdrop, what is being shown, the slogans that are on the stage, and of course, the whole display of power, So for Hamas, first of all, saying, we're here. We're not going anywhere. We're strong. We're controlling the Gaza Strip, and we know, Israel has wanted, one of Israel's main goals for this war was to eradicate Hamas. We are far from being gone and over, and this is a very clear statement. And in the last release we've seen of Keith Siegel, who is also an American citizen, he immigrated to Israel in his 20s. We know there's a lot of American eyes on that, and we know also Trump and his close team have been watching that very carefully, and it had a lot of stake, pressure on the negotiators to try to bring American hostages out. Of course, this is, meant to sear the public, display of the public image of what Hamas is and where it is and what it's doing. So this is very well crafted, as you said. You also can notice little things. For example, all the hostages, when they come, they get a little bit of a cynical goodie bag where Hamas gives them memories and photos from their time in the Gaza Strip. This is they sign and they present also a form of release, as if this is sort of illegal conduct of, these are people who were taken with their pajamas from their homes on October 7th. Yeah, this is nothing of that sort, but this is part of what Hamas is trying to do. And you also notice their clothing. Today we've seen Ofer Kalderon. He's a 54-year-old man, but he is considered by Hamas to be connected, to be seen as a soldier or a potential soldier, because he could have been a reserve soldier for Israel. And so the exchange of prisoners against these people is different, and also the way they're being clothed and the way they're being presented, sort of like these are people that could be or are by Hamas part of the Israeli military, unlike the civilians who get different clothing. Every tiny detail, nothing is too tiny of a detail for Hamas in this very well orchestrated production. That's a way of putting that.
Goodness.
And of course, these are not the clothes that they were taken with. Yeah, we've seen these people in several documentations throughout the months where they were beaten, and many of them were also hurt. We've seen Keith Siegel, the eldest of them, who was released today, very frail, trying very hard to stand and being supported by 2 Hamas men at every given moment, trying to take his tread very carefully, taking his steps very slowly. And we know he was injured. He was also kidnapped with his wife, who was, giving testimony that he was never treated as long as she was there with him. So still a lot of work for these people, for these men to come home to recover in so many levels.
Well, presumably he will get that treatment now. So far, what has been described by many as a delicate truce continues to hold. What happens after today?
Well, that's the biggest question. We are starting in 2 days. Israel and Hamas should be officially starting negotiations on the next phase, which should make this ceasefire a permanent one and not just a temporary one, leading to the end of the war and leading to the release of the remaining Israelis who are not part of this deal, another around 60 men. Some of them are also officially pronounced dead, but the retrieval of their bodies. This is a step that Israel, mostly Netanyahu, because of his right-wing government, was very hesitant to do, because it will require Israel to announce this is the end of the war. And this is something that Netanyahu has very much vehemently was against through the last 15 months. If we will see American pressure succeed, then maybe they will find, a way to make it happen. But it's definitely not going to be an easy deal to achieve. We know that this one took months and months and months to achieve, and now the two sides have only a couple of weeks to bring this giant, gargantuan mission of negotiations to a halt. It might be probably not by accident why we are seeing Netanyahu going to be in the White House early this week, the first foreign leader. Trump very much wants to put pressure. He wants to see this war in Gaza comes to an end, and a lot of pressure is going to be on both sides in the next days.
That's our DW Middle East analyst, Shani Rosanes. Many thanks
You're
as
welcome,
always,
Michael.
Shani.